Hi everybody, welcome to week 8. So what we want to look at for starters is we want to look at sharing our code. Back a few weeks ago, I had you post in the class forum. You went on a couple of websites and you were supposed to look at and post what was static on the site and what was dynamic. And what we've really been focusing on the last couple of weeks is the dynamic part. So for example, we looked at the Globe and Mail and we said all the articles, pictures, advertisements, video, basically everything underneath the header was dynamic content, and then we got down to the bottom and we had this static sort of footer down at the bottom. Then we took a look at Amazon.com, pretty similar. Most of the things in the header are static. They'll be the same on every page. So we've got a logo, we've got a search bar, we have some navigation links, we have all kinds of dynamic content in the middle, featured products, and then down at the bottom we have a static footer. So even if I click on one of these products, for example, we see that the header doesn't really change. Our header is static and our footer is static. Same on Globe and Mail. If I want to click into an article, my header is going to be the same, largely the same. My ad is dynamic, but my logo, search bar, these links in the header are the same. Everything under the header is dynamic. And then I have a static footer. Now, if we think about how many pages are in these websites, there could be dozens, hundreds, thousands. So what we don't want, what we really need is we don't want to repeat this code on every single page. Why? Well, one, it's a lot of work. And two, if we need to make a change, let's say we want to add a new link in our footer, we don't want to have to go into every page of the website and make that change. So what we want to do is we want to look at breaking up our website into components and identifying where do we have elements like headers, footers, sidebars, for example, that we'll use on multiple pages. And in this case, we're going to want to break these components into their own separate files, and then we'll simply link them in, much the same way that we link external style sheets into our page, into our website. So rather than define a set of styles for every single page, so far in the application we've been building, we've just been linking to Bootstrap CSS files. So we can also link to our own files and start to break our whole web pages up into a series of components. Show you another website. There's a site I built several years ago. So really all of the sites that you see every day really are modular. There really aren't many web pages that are actually created from start to finish. So if we look at this website, we actually have about 6 or 7 different files or components that are pieced together at runtime in the browser to make it look to the end user like one complete web page. So here we have a header file. We have a separate file for our navigation, and these things don't change. We only have one header, one navigation, because they don't change from page to page. On the home page, we have a news module that shows news. We also have a featured listings that show certain properties that are for sale. So that's our header is 1, our nav is 2, news sidebar is 3 components, our featured listing is a 4th separate component, again created as an entirely separate page. Our contact form is yet another page, so that's 5, and then down at the bottom we have our site footer. So 6 different components. It looks like one complete web page. Now if I go in and click on one of these properties, we'll see that this page has fewer components. We still have our header and nav, but now we have a property listing description in the middle. Notice our sidebar on the left is gone, and we still have our shared footer. So the nice thing about this, if suddenly I need to make a new link in the navigation, I only have to change one file. I only have to change this navigation file up here at the top. I don't have to go into every single page and add that new link. So this is really where we're going today. Most sites that we visit every day are put together like this. So we want to think about it, and there's a number of reasons we want to do it. First of all, it's simply less code, right? Why would we want, if I have 20 pages in the site, why would I want 20 versions of the header? It's not efficient. It also makes our sites much easier to maintain when we can simply make a change in one place and then have that change reflected on all the other pages that need it. So in this case, we're looking at reusable pieces that are visual, a header, a navigation, a footer, for example. In Amazon's case, we also have something like search bar. But it's not only these things we can reuse, we can also reuse pieces of our code. So if we think about what kinds of things we've been doing, I'm just going to open up some of our files from last week. Actually, before I do, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy all of these files. So here's my week 6 folder. I'm going to copy all the PHP pages we've built so far. I'm going to make a week 8 folder for today, and I'd like you to do the same. And I'm going to paste those files in. So if I open up, I'm going to open up, let's say my movie files. Open these up in my code editor. We're going to see that there are some other things that we've done, not only visual elements, but for example, things like our database connection. Here's my save movie page with my database connection. Here's my movies page, database connection. My movie page, once again. So for a number of reasons, even though this is only one line of code, it's going to be much more efficient if we could break this line up, put it in a separate file, and then we can simply link that file into any page that needs to connect to our database. Now, there's a number of reasons why this is a good idea. First of all, particularly for database connections, these things change. So for example, if we were to move hosts, well, our host name, our database host, is going to change. We don't want to have to go into every page on the website and change that value. We want to store that connection in one single place in our application and then share it. Maybe we have to change database logins, which is something that happens all the time in real-world applications. For example, a server is hacked or compromised. We'll want to reset those credentials. We don't want to go into 500 pages and change the username and password. We want to go in once. Or perhaps a developer who was part of the development team for a while and has had access to the database credentials maybe leaves and goes to work somewhere else. Well, we may want to change those database credentials in our MySQL database server, and if we do that, we're going to need to change the credentials here too. So for many reasons, it makes sense for us to move this file into a separate place. Now, there's other things that we're going to want that are common as well. Notice in our movie and movies forms, for example, we have all of our links to our CSS. Well, if suddenly we add a new style sheet, the way we've set up our application right now, we're going to have to go in and change these links on every single page. So again, it would be much more efficient if we can simply modularize that section of our application, put it into one single file, and share it. So one of the things we want to do for efficiency is try and identify, when we're designing and developing a site and planning it out, what are the reusable components? Pretty much we know guaranteed we're going to have a shared header and a shared footer at minimum. Any site we look at today, we're going to find those things. Header at the top, shared footer at the bottom. The other nice thing, by making our components modular, like let's say my navigation bar or my news component, by putting these things in separate files, it also allows us to reuse that functionality or code from one application to another. So in this case, we've built this news module. So now if I have to build another website and my customer wants to have a news module, well, I already have this as its own separate file. I can just bring that library in where I have a news module and a news detail page, and those components are ready to go. So not only do we want to share visual elements or functionality within one website, but we may want to share that functionality across multiple sites. So, if we think back to week 1, one of the things I said I wanted you to do was to stop seeing websites from the perspective of the end user and start to see websites from the perspective of an architect. How are they put together under the hood? And this modularization, this breaking our web pages into components, is a huge part of that. So that's it for our introduction. What I want you to do now is you're going to need to use your search engine and answer the quiz so that you can look at the functions that are available to us so that we can link one PHP file into another PHP file. And after you successfully answer the quiz, you can proceed to activity 2, and we'll put some of this code in action.